So I've made a little bit of progress. I let the watercolor dry overnight and came back to it. Camera, I needed to work out which pens would work best for the next step. I started with this Pigma FB, a Sakura, nice little brush. It's a clean piece of kind of a soft tip. For the most part, it's not a soft brush tip. It was a little bit thick. It has to feel to me like what made this mark, what felt right. So then I went to my tried and true micron pens, Pigma microns, and I tried various 0.005 up to 0.1 and 0.8 and 0.5. And again, it had to feel like this. That's the only way I can say it did it feel like the marks that made these? And once I figured out which one it was, I went with the 0.5 was the one that I made the marks with. You'll see I've also added my favorite pop. I'm not really a pink person at all, but this Holbein Opera, I cannot get enough of it. It's on every palette that I have, and it finds its way into almost every watercolor I ever do. Once I discovered it years ago, I can't leave it alone. It's one of my favorites. And so instead of this red, that's the color here, is this Opera. I have to say that my younger self would have been very disappointed because this doesn't look exactly like this. That's what my goal used to be. Oh, I really like this. I want to do it. And of course, it doesn't ever turn out exactly like the inspiration. Even if the inspiration is your own work, you can't replicate it exactly. So it's futile and frustrating to attempt that. But if you go into it, as I did with this, going, I'm just going to do something inspired by this, not exactly this, I had a lot more fun with it versus trying to get every piece of this exact. And I noticed, I'm going to put this away for a little while. We'll come back to it perhaps. Oh, this is an altered book project that I'm working on that I will show you in a couple of days. So this will make another appearance in this video, and that's coming up shortly. So watch for that. I didn't even start out the same. Our inspiration is all from one corner out. And I, from the beginning, started in the middle and went up. Didn't even think about it. Didn't even think about that. Duh. So it had no chance of being exactly that way because, well, we didn't even start off that way. And so I wanted to work out which pens to use, which I did. And it took me some doing, some trial and error. This is perfectly fine. This is part of the process, is to work that stuff out, figure it out. You don't have to know exactly going in, and there's no shame in scrapping it out. Now, some of these I could tear up and they'd be fine little additions to you know, that'd be kind of cool. I would probably stiffen up that stem a little bit and make a couple extras, but that would be a fine little addition to a junk journal. The rest of it's kind of junky, so probably just throw it away. So once I figured that out, I was off and running, and I just played it. I wanted to work this out before filming because I don't need to take up your time with me figuring stuff out. But I was having so much fun, I just kept going, and I started this side, and I thought, wait a minute, gotta finish the video. So because I'm a lefty, I turn everything on pretty well, almost a 90. When I write, it's almost a 90-degree angle. When I say lefty, I mean primarily when I write and paint and eat, I'm left-handed, but I do everything else with my right hand in a left-handed manner, or with my left hand in a right-handed manner. If you look at my handwriting, I don't have that back slant that most lefties have because I turn my paper at a 90-degree angle. In fact, if I wanted to, I can have the proper slant. You're supposed to have almost a 45-degree slant to your cursive writing. Those of you who are old enough to know what cursive handwriting is. So there's a tip. If you're a lefty, turn your paper. And I just would like to say this is a left turn, but welcome to my channel. When I was a kid, my teachers would come and they'd put my paper back. They would turn my paper. I was first grade. Mrs. Gamage, she'd come by. She was teaching us cursive handwriting, and she'd come by, and I had my paper slanted so that I could stay in the lines, see what I was doing, and blah, blah, blah. She'd come by and she'd turn that paper on me, and my 6-year-old or 5-year-old self would just turn it right back. This is how I need to do it in order to make it successful. I can't follow your rules if you want me to do what you want me to do. Even then, I was like, fuck you and your rules. I will just do this my own way. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it because that's where I need it to be from here on out. So, again, this color is Opera, and I'm taking a quite a bit smaller brush. This is a Robert Simmons White Sable size 6. And I have worn the tip of this one out. There's hardly anything left at the point. And it can't even hold itself right. It's bent. Perhaps it was stored improperly for a while too. That could be it. And so when I paint with it, it's got this incredibly irritating bend. So it's time for a new brush. I have some brush conditioner. I'm going to try and retrain it. We'll see. But that's what I'm using for this, despite its problems. I love these white sable brushes. Again, they're synthetic bristles, so no little critters had to be tortured or killed so that I could paint. Once in a while you get just a wild hair. I don't even know if that's showing up on camera, but it makes me crazy. So I just go right up to the furrow and trim it off. Okay, so let's get back to this. So I want some pops of color. I'm going to try and do a very similar thing because I'm going to use these as book covers. So I'm going to wet my brush. And this is a tip. I think I've shared it before, and I'm sure I'll share it again. When you're doing any sort of painting, wet your brush first, no matter what you're doing. Get it good and wet. Kind of even tamp it at the bottom of your water dish just to get that water way up into those bristles. And then I get most of the water out. I just do this until most of the water's out, because sometimes you don't want water in your paint, but that will make your brushes way easier to clean, especially if you're using gesso or glue or acrylic paint. All those things tend to get up in these, high up in the bristles, and boy, getting that out of there is troublesome sometimes. But if you wet your brush first and get most of the water out, get all your bristles really, really wet, and then get most of the water out, you'll have a much easier time of cleanup. That works in household painting too. When you're painting your walls, wet that brush super, super good. Get all the bristles really, really wet, and then shake every bit of water out of there as you can, tamp it on a towel, and then paint. Super easy cleanup. Easier cleanup that way. Oh, the tips here never stop. All right, so I'm just gonna put in, I have 3 little buds, I guess I'll call them. I don't know what else to call them. And again, I'm using Holbein Opera for this bit. I try to work when I'm putting things in, I try to work in odd numbers. That's a rule of design. Odd numbers just tend to work better. And I'm looking at this one. I felt like I needed a pop there and a pop there and a pop there. Where might I need another one? I like putting them, for some reason, I just want to put them right there in the white spots. So I'm going to put one here. And one down here. Why? Just because. So I already put in the center for this daisy looking thing, whatever that is. And I noticed, I noticed after I had done all of these that there were quite a few down in here, so I'm gonna just drop a few. Heather and Jan down in here too. There's also these little wispy, I don't know what they are, but we're gonna make some. I don't know what they are at all. Up in here. And for that, I'm just gonna make little dots. Some of them connect, some of them don't. I just keep a Kleenex on hand, or a box of Kleenex on hand, to blot. Take some of that color off. That gives it some interesting dimension. And these are pretty wispy. They're pretty watery. So I'm gonna take some of my color off and do a few more. And I'm always looking over at my reference just to see where they put theirs, and then look back and see where I think I want to put mine. Here just feels like a good idea. And then another one. And these have really wispy, stems. You see how that silly tip is curved? If you've been here a while, you may know that I don't do social media. I loathe it. And as a viewer, you'll hear me say this again in other videos, sure, I'm sure. As a viewer, years before I started a YouTube channel, I was a YouTube watcher. I haven't had cable in the 20 years I've lived in this house. I've never had cable. If I want to watch something, I can find it on YouTube or elsewhere on the internet. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram. They irritate the bejesus out of me. And as a viewer, when I would be watching a YouTube person, no matter what the topic, they would say things like, find me on Facebook, and here's my website, and I'm on Instagram, and check me out on Pinterest, and I'm over here on LinkedIn, and what are some of the other ones? You know, they're endless. And I felt every single time I heard that as a viewer, I felt like I am not chasing you all over the internet. To me, it's the same thing as saying, hey, let's have a cup of coffee at the coffee cabin. And we go to the coffee cabin, and I'm there, and you say, hey, no, I'm over at the mall at their coffee shop. No, I'm over at downtown. And you want me to chase you all over town and have coffee with you? I'm not going to do that. I'm here on YouTube. I will watch on YouTube. And as now a YouTube video maker, I understand that it's important to be where people are. So it's important for YouTubers to be on LinkedIn, be on Pinterest, be on Instagram, be on Facebook, start a Facebook group, start a newsletter. Oh, find me on Etsy. Don't forget that. I have a shop, right? Oh, it's exhausting. And on one hand, as a YouTube creator, you have to do that. It's part of your marketing strategy. I am not going to ask my viewers to chase me all over the internet. I do have a Patreon page, and I do have an Etsy store, because YouTube doesn't let you link documents. In your description, you can only link links, and so you have to put them somewhere. So out of necessity, I have to have a place to put things, to give to you. And as you may or may not know, this is now full-time, and so I started a Patreon page because some of the in-depth, more in-depth videos, the longer community ed type programs take an enormous amount of time, and not everyone on YouTube wants to watch it. People want to watch the longer class type videos. Well, they can go to Patreon, and that way everybody's happy, ? Sorta. Impossible, I realize, but we try. So I've got my little, they're almost like baby's breath to me. That's what this feels like wispy. Anyway, I say all that to explain A, why I'm not in any of those places. I want to make this as easy for viewers as possible. And C, I don't do social media, so when I'm on YouTube, I read the comments. I comment on videos, and I comment on other people's comments, because that's my conversation with people. And I've seen several times people say to their favorite junk journaler or mixed media artist, oh, so-and-so, I wish I had 1/10 of your talent. I wish I had half of your talent. And I always comment back to that person and say that whoever it is very talented. But the good news is you have 100% of your talent. How cool is that? Sadly, we don't appreciate our own talents the way we appreciate other talents. But I want to encourage you to embrace your style. And even if you don't have one yet, that's how we learn. We learn by emulating others, and we learn by copying other people do what we want to do. And eventually, we do find our style. Just by doing it. Oh, you know, there are things that people do all the time in junk journaling that I'll probably never do because it's just not me at all. I just noticed, well, I noticed it yesterday too, but there's this tiny little sprig of something. So I added a tiny little sprig of something, and we'll make it come to life with the pen work. So the last few little things are these little, they're almost like hibiscus. They open up almost like hibiscus. So I'm going to put the little stamens in, and then we can draw the flowers around them later. And there's two right together. And then there's one off to the side. Drying off my brush, getting most of the water and paint off there. And I just want to pull out some of these. I think they're stamens. I'm not sure if that's the right word. I was watching a watercolor painter the other day, and I think she was painting a cat, and she said, oh, it's in that ugly stage. And that's a really good thing to understand in any project. There's an ugly stage. Just like there's what I call the muck in the middle. For example, if you're redoing the bathroom, it seems like a really good idea and you're jazzed about doing it, and you pull all the old wallpaper off, and you scrape the loose paint, and you pull everything out, and you start cleaning the walls and taping off for trimming in or cutting in the paint. And about halfway through, you just think, oh, what have I done? This is a mess. I'm never gonna finish. Why did I even start this nightmare? But you keep going because you need a bathroom, right? So you gotta finish it, and you finish it, and oh, you're so glad you did. It sparkles and it's beautiful and it smells like clean, fresh paint, and oh, it's all up to date, and it's brilliant. It's brighter and it's way, way better. But there was that point in every project. Whether it's cleaning out your closet or KonMariing your house or painting or writing a book, anything. Unless it's a little small thing that you can finish in a few minutes. There's a point in it that you just go, oi, oi, here's where we're at. You know, it's kind of ugly. You just got to get through it and know that on the other end it'll be better. Promise. The ink work brings it right to life in this particular instance. So I think I'm going to leave this be for now. Start hitting it with the ink. So because I worked it out the other day, I'm going to return to my favorite 05. I started with what seemed to be the easiest, which are these buds. Ooh, that's too big. Too big for this one. Must have been the 005. That's better. And they just have these, they're kind of broken up and they kind of disappear into nothing. Stems. I love the line work on this cover because it's not perfectly precise. But yet it adds so much to the finished piece. These ones down here in the stem area, they're pretty dark. Oh. I don't think that paint was fully dry and it's clogging up my pen. And this is very contemplative. It's very zen, you know. I'm not trying to make a rosebud, and I'm not trying to make the perfect stem. I'm just doing line work. I'm just sort of outlining. Not really, because I don't want it to look like a coloring book, but I'm just adding more of the same things that are there in different spots, in the same spots. And the beauty of this kind of thing, and the beauty of art and drawing in general, is the viewer's eye finishes stuff. When you look at things, it looks like, oh, there's so much detail in that, and oh my gosh, how did you do it? I didn't do anything. It's just dots and marks, but our eyes read it as detail. We don't have to work as hard as we think we have to work in order to get a detailed look. You know, if you're doing a watercolor of a brick building, you don't have to put in all the bricks. You just put a few bricks in and your mind fills in the rest. Amazing thing, our minds. I am going back over some of the stems just because they look too skinny to hold up anything. It's gotta be believable. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's gotta be believable. So, oh, let's do this little guy before I forget him again. He's very, very fine. Just wispy little. So he wasn't much of anything, and now he's gonna be maybe part of one of my favorite parts of it. So I want to do this. It's like a wilted, lazy, giant daisy thing. Get that? Wilted, lazy, giant daisy thing. That's a technical term. Please don't be throwing it around loosely. Now theirs is, they did it in one swoop, and I'm going back over mine because mine looks very different from theirs, and in order for me to be able to rest at night, it has to be enough different that I feel like I didn't jack it up. I made it my own. There's a difference, right? So I'm making this lazy daisy thing my own. Mine's not quite so daisy, or wilted, lazy. Sort of. It's kind of in your face. But I'm going to push it back when I do my ferns over it. It'll get pushed back. It won't be quite so in your face. Okay. And we'll do these little guys down here. These are just so freeform. I don't know what they did. I don't even know. I don't even know. I'm gonna move up to the 05 from the 005 for some of the ferns. I'll go back to this one because there's a few down in here on this reference that I totally missed. There's little short ones down in here that I didn't do that I'd like to do. So I'm just going to go back over here for a second. The cool thing about this kind of setup is that nature's messy. You know? Something might cover something up or crisscross weird, but that's what happens in nature. Looks a little naked to me, so I'm just gonna, kind of like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, I'm just gonna fill in some of those blank spots and these were. They're not perfect, you know, leaves get crushed and bent and branches get broken and they grow funny and it's all good. I'm gonna switch back to the 05 again. Excuse me, the 005. And do some of these taller ones. What kind of ferns are those? I have no idea. Doesn't matter. Follow that stem. Where'd the stem go? Oh, it disappeared, so I'm not gonna do any more of those. No shame in moving your paper around either, if you have to. Flip it this way and that. Good to let it just sit for a few minutes. I'm going to go rescue the Bostons. It's time to get them up for the morning. I'm going to just give it some time and come back to it. When you do that, often you'll see glaring blank spots or something that needs fixing or adjusting or redoing. And then we'll go from there.